So, I was rereading Blackest Night, the DC storyline, the other day, and it really struck me how cool of a concept it was for the Lantern Corps to kind of distribute all their different rings out to the different heroes on Earth. I just thought that was such an interesting idea. It was cool when I was a kid, and it's still cool now, rereading it so many years later. And it kind of got me thinking, what if they did the same thing, but in the Marvel universe? Like, where would all those rings go, you know? Green for willpower, red for anger, yellow for fear. There's so many options and candidates to kind of pick through. I thought it'd be a fun little video to just pick a couple heroes and villains that would exemplify each ring and each emotional spectrum. And the more I think about it, the more I realize there's really tons and tons of heroes or villains you could pick for this, but I tried to narrow it down to 2 or 3 options, or maybe even 1, for each Lantern Corps. Now, of course, we're going to start off with the Green Lanterns, the embodiment of willpower on the emotional spectrum. There is a ton of heroes and villains we could pick for this one. I mean, all characters have to have some willpower, pretty strong willpower to some degree, but I think the most obvious one has got to be, of course, Spider-Man. It's kind of become a meme at this point with how much emotional trauma Peter Parker has been through, but it is true. It is a central part of his character. He's endured many tragedies, and he simply pushes through it. Spider-Man's whole mantra is, of course, with great power comes great responsibility, and if that isn't a huge show of willpower, I'm not sure what is. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we've got Dr. Doom. Now, if you know Dr. Doom, you know he's extremely petty and stubborn, but he's also honorable in his own way, and I think all those things are very close to willpower. He's a very interesting character. You know, he's not a good guy, but he also he has morals and a code in a kind of way, and I think that's pretty interesting. And definitely a huge display of his willpower. Also worth mentioning, he's even resistant to some mind control just because of how willful he is. I think if green power rings suddenly showed up on Earth for some reason, they would zip right to these two as huge beacons of willpower in the Marvel Universe. Next up is Yellow, the Yellow Lantern Corps. Embodiment of fear on the emotional spectrum, kind of the opposite or the counterpart to green. Now, once again, Marvel has a huge kind of catalog of the supernatural heroes and characters, a lot of which would work great for Yellow. However, I think the first one is pretty obvious, right? It's got to be Ghost Rider. I mean, he's a phantom biker with a flaming skeleton head. The dude is like fear incarnate, basically. Not only that, but he has those great supernatural connections, lots of relationships from characters to hell and everything. And if that's not enough, he's also got the penance stare at his disposal, which, if you ask me, is pretty damn terrifying. And I think makes him a great candidate for a Yellow Lantern ring. Next up, let's talk about Moon Knight. The guy's so crazy that he actually wears white so that his enemies will see him coming. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I would definitely be afraid if he was coming at me, and I'm sure the criminals that he fights are as well. This is also the same guy who, when he's in a fight, likes to take hits from his opponent so that they'll tire him out. If that's not terrifying, I don't know what is. Seriously, this guy seems like a shoo-in for a Yellow Lantern ring. And finally, I wanted to add a couple more obscure characters to this list. So why don't we go with Man-Thing? If you don't know Man-Thing, he is a little bit more obscure. He's a really cool Marvel character on kind of the supernatural side of things. He was a doctor named Ted Sallis who got into an accident, and while he might look a little bit similar to Swamp Thing from DC, they are pretty different. I think the similarities are pretty much just surface level. And one of Man-Thing's primary powers and abilities is that anything that feels fear burns at his touch. I mean, that is like asking for a Yellow Lantern ring. That's like his whole power set. Okay, next let's talk about Red, the Red Lantern Corps, the embodiment of anger on the emotional spectrum. Yeah, if you know Marvel, there's, at least in my opinion, a couple really obvious picks for this one. Let's start off with the double feature of Hulk and Wolverine. Both of these guys are savage, furious heroes that, to me, really kind of embody that animalistic fury that you think of when you think of the Red Lantern Corps. Not only that, but I think Red might be my favorite, just because it's so metal. I mean, these guys don't really make constructs; they just shoot these napalm fire out of their mouths. That seems perfect to me for Hulk and Wolverine. Two heroes known for their anger. Now, the third one for Red, this one is a little bit more subtle, I think, but I'm gonna go with Punisher, if you can call Punisher subtle after all. But I think his anger is a little bit less obvious. It's a little bit more like a silent fury, you know? Anger at the world, anger at humanity, after his family's deaths. I think he really actually fits for a Red Lantern ring. Next up is Blue, which represents hope on the emotional spectrum. Blue is pretty cool. They've got some cool characters in the Blue Lantern Corps, and they often get paired up with the Green Lanterns. And if blue rings suddenly appeared in the Marvel Universe, I think there's two very obvious characters they would immediately latch onto. First up is Hope Summers. Hope is a really cool character. She's a little bit more obscure as well, but she is a mutant. She's a big part of the X-Men storyline, and in a lot of stories, she kind of acts as the mutant messiah. She's the first actual mutant born after this big decimation that happens because of Scarlet Witch, and she kind of represents the hope of all mutants in the Marvel Universe. At least she did for a long time. So I think a Blue Lantern ring would really be attracted to all that hope she's generating. I mean, it's in her name, right? Come on. Next up is, of course, Captain America. Captain America is not often the strongest, smartest, or fastest on the battlefield, but despite that, if he's there, his teammates suddenly have hope. He is a great leader and a great pillar of morality and values in the Marvel Universe, and I think a Blue Lantern ring for him just kind of fits, and it matches him, right? Come on. Okay, let's talk about orange, the orange lanterns. Orange on the emotional spectrum is the color of avarice, or greed, and in the DC Universe, there's only one of them. It's a slimy little guy named Larfleeze. He's actually a pretty interesting character, but it's not often that other orange rings even seek out other people. It's happened a few times. Lex Luthor's gotten one, which is pretty cool. But yeah, typically there's just one orange lantern. And I think that fits just fine in the Marvel Universe because there's one character that really stands out to me as being a great fit for it, and that is the Collector. This guy's whole shtick is that he's just collecting anything and everything that he can, all throughout the galaxy, and of course that often throws him into conflict with characters like the Guardians of the Galaxy and other space-related teams. But yeah, he just seems like a good fit to me. He's a little bit slimy, he's greedy of course, and I think he would love an orange ring. The Indigo Lantern Corps is probably the most unique in the DC Universe, purely because it's based off the emotion of compassion. However, it doesn't seek out individuals with great amounts of compassion. Instead, it's quite the opposite, actually. It goes after sociopaths and individuals that are completely devoid of any kind of empathy for others, which I think is really cool, actually. And of course, there's a lot of characters in the Marvel Universe that are just that, completely devoid of empathy. So, to embody that, let's talk about Carnage, the Purple Man, and Bullseye. All three of these guys are complete sociopaths, only caring for their own self-interests and hurting any and everyone who gets in their way. All three of them are petty, they're killers, and they basically show no remorse or care for the consequences of their actions. Carnage is a psychotic hillbilly killer. The Purple Man is a mind controller who destroys his victims both physically and emotionally in the process. And Bullseye is petty and sadistic and evil, all rolled up into a villainous package. All three of these guys are perfect candidates for an Indigo Lantern ring to bond to and get a little more compassion into their characters. I think that would be really interesting to see. Finally, let's talk about the Star Sapphire Corps, or the Violet Lantern Corps, who draw on the power of love on the emotional spectrum. I thought for a long time that Scarlet Witch would be the perfect candidate for a Violet Lantern ring. A lot of her storylines in the comics involve grief and the loss of her loved ones, which kind of can cause her powers to go haywire, and that to me just seems like a great representation of how much she loves those around her. Her family members, her sons, fellow mutants. That is like a big part of her core character. And another one that fits is Susan Storm. Keep in mind that the Star Sapphire Corps primarily only takes women as their ring bearers. So Scarlet Witch and Susan Storm both fit pretty well. Susan is kind of the mother of Marvel, and her whole thing is keeping the Fantastic Four together, that she kind of acts as the glue for them. So I think it fits for her to get a Violet Lantern ring, especially being a strong female character like she is. And finally, while it is unusual, Violet Lantern rings can bond to men. It's just pretty out of the ordinary and doesn't happen often, but it has been seen a couple times in the comic books. So let's consider the Silver Surfer Norn Rad for a Violet Lantern. His whole story is kind of about love and redemption for people and sentient life, and that of course clashes with his job as a Herald of Galactus, but usually he does end up betraying Galactus to save the worlds that are supposed to be devoured. So I think it really fits for him to get a Violet Lantern ring. Okay guys, that's the video. It was a ton of fun to make. I really enjoyed making this one, editing it, recording it. It was all a blast for me, honestly. Let me know in the comments if I missed any really obvious choices for being lanterns. I know I didn't include all the lantern cores anyways, like white and black, and I believe there's a new one out now too, but I really just wanted to stick to the core 8 because they're so well defined and have such great history. Anyways, let me know in the comments if I missed anything. If you want to see another video like this, let me know. Thanks for watching.